The big brands are eating each other and the portals are picking sides. EXP bought Next Home. Real is buying Remax, as we all know. Zillow and Realtor.com just joined forces. The map of this industry got redrawn while hopefully you guys are all out closing deals. So let's get into it. I'm Sandy Lynn Burnett. I'm CEO of my real estate company. I scaled a nationally expanding brokerage to 7 states in 7 months after watching too many agents get jaded by the status quo. This show is to tell you exactly what's going on in real estate.
I'm Josh Reese. I am the Director of Advancement at my real estate company, a lead generation consultant and an Inman contributor. And I met Sandy Lynn because her business partner threatened to burn my house down if I didn't join her brokerage.
No big whoop. We're joined by producer Brian, hiding behind the scenes. I served with him in the Marine Corps just a couple of years ago, not too long ago. All right, so let's get into our top story. This actually broke, I would say, 40 minutes ago, okay? EXP acquires Next Home to create multi-platform model. So here's the rundown. EXP World Holdings just bought Next Home for an undisclosed price. And it's like, that's not going to be undisclosed though, right? They're publicly traded companies. EXPI is a publicly traded company. I don't think that it can be an undisclosed price, but I don't know. We'll discuss that. And dropped its EXPI ticker for AGNT on NASDAQ. The bigger story is that EXP, the cloud brokerage everyone thinks of as a cloud brokerage, just bolted on a franchise model. 2 brands, 2 business models, 1 parent company. Leo Pareja is calling it a multi-model platform and saying the one-size-fits-all era is over. Next Home brings about 5,400 agents and 500 franchisees built since 2014 by James Dwiggins. And gosh, I'm not going to say this name. It's spelled TEI. So Tai Baishik. There's no way. They have 5,400 agents. I did not think to pronounce that name. They run a humans over houses pitch and a tech stack with Real Scout, SkySlope, and is it Cubicasa or Kubicasa?
I think it's Kubicasa, but I don't know.
Kubicasa. What does that program even do?
I have no idea. I've just heard about it, but I've never actually seen it work. So
I'm sure producer Brian will let us know. He'll let us know what Kubicasa is. So starting today, franchisees can pick a full tech stack with hands-on support, like starting today, holy shit, or a new light tech stack with lower overhead, and contracts come in 1-year or 5-year terms. Brokers keep ownership of their data either way. Both companies will keep their own leadership and operate independently under the AGNT umbrella. So Brian says that Kubicasa is 2D and 3D scans of floor plans. So anyway, the context matters more than the actual deal itself, because we all know like Compass bought Anywhere in January, and then the whole Remax, Realmax is, that was just announced at the end of April. That deal is still, ongoing and hoping to get finalized second half of 2026. I guess within the next 3 months, right? But EXP, they scooped this up in the middle of the night and they're starting immediately. This is what's going on. So I find that fascinating. Pareja keeps comparing real estate to the airlines collapsing into United, Delta, and American, and he's not all the way wrong about this direction, I don't think. 3 of the loudest names in this industry just consolidated inside of 4 months. I mean, this is insane, don't you think, Josh?
I think it is. I think we're in the middle of a real estate arms race and everybody's jockeying for position.
Absolutely. The squeeze is in the middle. The mega brands, they're like stacking all these models. I think that this is interesting because I was making a point earlier. It's like they're buying and selling agents. It feels kind of dirty to me almost. And, I'm reading here another perspective is they're stacking models so that they can sell agents any flavor that they want. Like, so I'm like, oh, that's a nice way of putting it, I guess, cloud or franchise, full tech, light, like which one do you want? Um, I don't know how that's going to work, to be honest. It's kind of like, what kind of real estate agent are you going to be? You got to kind of have a niche, right? You can't be everything to everyone. I'm interested to see how that's going to work out. You can't just throw spaghetti at the wall and be everything to everyone. You have to like pick your identity and go for it. Clearly, EXP's fully cloud-based identity wasn't working, but it's my personal opinion that their fully cloud-based identity wasn't working because they tried to shove their proprietary cloud-based technology onto their agents, and their agents, they didn't like it. They were like, we don't like this garbage program that you are making us use, but if we can use Zoom or we can use Google Meet or we can use these other programs that we're used to and we like we'll embrace this cloud thing. But if you're going to make us be in this fucking weird ass video game and we're not going to be like seeing you face to face, I'm not going to be into it.
I think a lot of this is going back to giving agent choice, which is great. However, I think what we're going to see, because we heard kind of a similar thing from Tim yesterday about how Real was going to keep the Remax name, keep the franchises kind of under its own, all under the big umbrella, but kind of under its own offshoot, the franchise side of the business, which it kind of sounds like that's what EXP is doing. I'm curious though, because ultimately I think that franchise model is really kind of dying. It's not as profitable as some of the other models, and especially if you've got a fairly big franchise and you can move that whole franchise under one of these more MLM style brokerages, you're eliminating a lot of your risk for a lot of the things you have to pay for, and you're profiting off of it. So I think realistically, that's what they're both saying is going to happen. But I think realistically, what we're going to see is very quickly, all those franchisees are just going to transition over to the mother brand, for lack of a better term. And the franchise model is just going to go away. I just see this as, that was the big question to what's going to happen. How do those franchises go away when you have all these people who invested their careers building these franchises and nobody really wants to buy them? How are they going to exit? Well, the good thing is I think we now are seeing how they're going to exit, because you have these franchise owners that can basically just transition to the other side of the house, take their whole brokerage with them, put them in their downline, and sort of, have residual money coming in based on that.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see the play for that. Like, I don't know what Next Home's current franchise agreements are. Does this dissolve their current franchise agreements? And do they now have the choice to either join EXP under their brokerage, do this light 1 year, or the heavy 5-year franchise agreement? Like, I'm interested to know if you are a Next Home franchisee out there and you want to tell us what's happening, we'd love to hear from you. Because and I also want to know, if you're a Next Home franchisee, like, when did you find out about this? Did you find out about this 40 minutes ago?
Yeah. Real quick, Sandy, I think another super important thing is this shows you too in real estate how you very rarely actually own your own business, because a lot of these franchise owners with Next Home and Remax thought, man, I've got a business. I've got, this brand that I've built in my market. And then within 24 hours, they're like, I don't have any control over it. I have zero control over my own business. I think a lot of agents are in that position too.
That is such a good point. And these franchises, especially the ones that have been successful, the ones who have been buying up the other less successful franchises, I think they got a very, very big wake up call as well. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out. Wow. Yeah, that's very perceptive of you. I was going to say, who's going to buy Keller Williams?
Well, they technically, I mean, just what I think first of the year, they sold a large portion to that investment firm. So I mean, it was kind of, that one flew under the radar. Not very many people talked about it.
I wasn't tracking that actually.
It was, I mean, it's not technically like an acquisition, I don't think. But yeah, they've been going to outside investment, resources too. So I think theirs was more a capital play where they needed some cash infusion, but it will be interesting to see. Either they're going to buy somebody or somebody will buy them.
Interesting. They're definitely not going to buy anyone. That's funny and cute that you would even think that. But I do believe that Compass stands a big chance to buy Keller Williams. And if not Compass, and if Serhant period is so convinced that the last two brokerages standing are going to be Compass and Serhant period, then he'd better start buying some brokerages.
He's fallen behind on his, his prediction.
Yeah. I mean, how many agents does he have? That'd be an interesting stat to pull up, because I don't really know. I mean, just because you're opening offices doesn't mean you have a lot of agents. So,
yeah.
All right, let's talk about the next story here. So, Real Brokerage, we already know that this acquisition is happening, but they held its first earnings call since announcing the Remax deal. And the message was actually split clean down the middle. To agents and franchisees, no forced migration, no two distinct brands. Remax stays Remax. To Wall Street, here is how we make money on this. The money story is the one that we're going to talk about. So combined, Real and Remax closed more than 700,000 transaction sides in the US last year. Tamir Polig said a 1% attachment rate on a one Real mortgage across that base is about $25 million in high margin revenue. And by the way, you guys, this is like talking Greek to me. I hate numbers like this. Makes my skin crawl. And 1% on title is over 10 million. He said the goal is much higher than 1%, and that's the real reason for the deal. Real bought the transaction pipeline so they can run the mortgage, title, and ancillary services through it. So the lead story that we've been watching this week is just as big. Remax.com and Remax.ca generate roughly 1 million leads a year. Real wants Leo AI to nurture those leads before they ever touch an agent. Pair that with Hey Leo, Real's new consumer search portal, and that has already ingested 357 MLSs and covers 85% of Real's agent footprint. And we can already see the play. Consumer search to AI qualification to agent handoff to close deal to ancillary attach. That's the loop that they're getting at. And actually, I didn't see that coming. I kind of saw it coming when the Motto mortgage thing was staying intact. I was like, interesting. That's kind of interesting. So add 30 million in expected run rate savings from duplicative public company costs and vendor contracts. And the financial case is looking pretty clear. Polig called closing day a boring day in the best possible way. Translation, do not break what we just bought. What do you think about that?
A couple things. First of all, I think it's interesting because I think this is kind of the first time. Well, I think Compass is also trying to do this, but I think what we're seeing is these brokerages are realizing like, hey, we cannot be dependent upon just real estate transactions and splits for our revenue. We have to branch out. We have to build businesses with multiple revenue pipelines using, all the auxiliary services with title, lending. There's a lot of things that they can get them, that they can sink their teeth into, bring it under the umbrella and really profit more than just taking splits from agents, which once again, I think is a great thing for agents because now you have brokerages that are relying less on your splits. And hopefully they're going to take some of that profit and reinvest it with you and as an agent, you'll be getting better service. So I think that's the interesting thing. I think for a long time, real estate brokerages have just been focused on, splits and caps, and that was their revenue and that was it. I think finally, with Compass and with Real, they're looking for the big game of how can we really own the entire real estate process, not just the sales process, but everything, including, title, mortgage. I'm sure we're going to start seeing some other, third-party services that get drug into this. So I think that's good. I think to me, when they start talking about leads and all that type of stuff, it's a couple things. First of all, this was on an earnings call. It tells me that they're trying to find things to, I think, cool investors down a little bit. There were a lot of investors on the real side of things that really didn't like this acquisition, hence the stock price doing what it did. I think, when they start talking about leads and all this stuff, to me, that's just a bunch of stuff. It's a bunch of hot air because, yeah, you might get, a whole bunch of new traffic coming to your website that you've now acquired from Remax. But the conversion rate in real estate being as low as it is, it's not really that big of a deal. The other thing about it is these aren't unique leads. Most of these people are going to be on Zillow. They're going to be leads in other people's CRMs. There's very few new leads that come in that you have exclusivity with. And so I think a lot of this is investor hype, trying to get investors behind this, especially investors that don't really understand the real estate industry. But I think it kind of shows they've got a PR issue where they're really trying to, sell this with all these different things that it's going to do. But I think at the end of the day, everything is all theoretical. So it will be interesting to see how it rolls.
Speaking of theoretical, I find it interesting that each of these deals, the Next Home thing and the Remax thing, they're promising absolutely no disruption to their agents, no matter what side of the deal you're on. So it's going to be very interesting to see who will keep that promise and which agents will feel a disruption, which agents won't, because the branding and different things like that. So you're going to tell me there's going to be absolutely no disruption. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing stock tickers change. I'm seeing different things change. So, okay.
Yeah. Well, and I will make the argument that a disastrous merger and, something that just is a terrible experience for agents is going to cause agents just to get up and leave.
They will look for somewhere clean. If they feel jerked around, they are gone.
Yeah. And that's one thing that, I'm sure with all these acquisitions, leadership teams have talked about is that transition. I've already talked to a couple agents in my local market with Coldwell Banker that are starting to see the ramifications of the Anywhere merger and they don't like it. And now I will say they're a little bit older school agents that, they're not very tech happy. And so the whole Compass thing, they're not real on board with, but they're already like, you know what? We're thinking about making a change. We love where we're at Coldwell Banker, but we see the direction that it's heading now that we've got bought out and we don't like it.
One number worth noting here, Real's agent count hit 33,900 as of May 6th. So that's yesterday. And they have transactions up 25% year over year. That's what they're reporting. And then Remax is still to come on top of that. I mean, they bought what, 100 and however many thousand agents.
I thought I heard 180,000.
Yeah, so it's amazing that a 33, almost 34,000 agent company bought a company with that many more agents.
Yeah.
Just find that very interesting. Because the EXP deal, you have like, I bet they have, 60,000 agents, maybe less now. That in their prime, they had nearly 90,000 agents. But I've been watching them, tick, 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 tick. And then they made, as far as I'm concerned, a modest purchase of 5,400 agents.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like they're buying people. It's like freaky to talk about it that way, but they are.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and yeah.
they act, you can act like you're buying technology all day long, but give me a fucking break.
Yeah. You're not buying any tech that's valuable to anybody else.
Agent production is what you are buying. And when you have been so freaked out because your top recruiters are walking out the door, and these are two MLM companies. These are two MLM companies who rely on agents. That's what they're built on. And instead of rewarding the producing agents, they rewarded the recruiters. And they set themselves up to that cycle, that endless cycle. So now they have to go out and buy agents to keep that company running.
Well, and part of it too is, let's face it, at some point these companies are going to hit a brick wall because there's only so many agents in the country. And the second that you have 2-3 quarters where your recruitment is flat, your investors are going to start freaking out, because that is the only thing that they've really touted as the value of their company is their agent growth.
Yeah. Yep. All right. We've got the third and final story, which is, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. This broke a couple of days ago. Zillow and Realtor.com, the two biggest competing portals in the entire country, just announced that they're going to share pre-market listings starting this summer. Zillow preview listings will show up on Realtor.com as Realtor.com preview listings. Between the two, they hit roughly 75% of major portal traffic, according to March ComScore numbers. That is a lot of eyeballs suddenly pointed at the same inventory. So, the why is more interesting than the what, always. It's a direct shot, obviously, at these private listing networks and the whole pocket listing movement that's been growing under the pressure on NAR's clear cooperation policy. Realtor.com CEO Damian Eales basically said it out loud that pre-market inventory is flowing into narrower channels, and buyers and sellers lose when listings get harder to find. Zillow CEO Jeremy Waxman went with the transparency route, saying nothing hidden, nothing reserved for a select few. Read between the lines, and this is Zillow and Realtor.com saying, we are not going to let Compass and other private exclusive players carve up the market. So the brokerage lineup on Zillow Preview is already heavy. Keller Williams, Remax, Home Services of America, Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services, United Real Estate, it goes on and on. It's all free to sellers and agents enrolled through a participating brokerage, and listing agents who close a deal through either platform may get a revenue share. Available everywhere in the country except New York City. Gotta love New York City, where Street Easy is doing its own version. The angle for today is this is the public portal world. They're drawing the hard line against the pocket listing world and Compass, which Compass has been holding these private exclusives. Home Services has been loud about consumer harm from private networks. Now, two competitors who normally beat each other up, they just locked. It's like if you can't beat them, join them type situation, which is
Exactly.
insane. Yes, and they just locked arms to make sure pre-market listings stay public. So if you're an agent or a broker who's been hoarding inventory in a private network, they might have just shrunk that surface area significantly.
I think, first of all, for the two companies to come together like this, it really shows what's going on in the industry, that they feel like they have to basically make this deal and work together to compete with brokerages who, for the longest time, they've just kind of, been like, what do we do to get your listing data? And now they're like, wait a second, we need to, basically get our own listing data with these pre-listings. So I think that's interesting. I think more importantly, what it does for both portals, it gives them another touch point, because now, they have price change drip campaigns they can send out for price changes. They can send out for, status changes on houses. These are all touch points that they can get in front of clients. Now they have another one. They can do a private listing touch point, or I'm sorry, a preview touch point of listings that are being previewed. I just, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot from a seller. I don't think it's going to change the stats for your sellers on selling a home faster, doing that type of stuff. I do think maybe it's going to get some more eyeballs on it. But I think a lot of this is kind of smoke and mirrors, where I think the whole industry is in an arms race. And now we see these two portals are like, you know what, we need to get involved in the fray too and make a big announcement. I just don't see it changing a whole lot really when it comes to the system. From what it looks like, people will be able to pre-book showings on these. But this is something that a lot of MLSs have had for a while, some sort of coming soon, no showing type
Yeah,
thing.
I feel like Zillow started it. Like Zillow started it, like started some weird war that like didn't even need to exist in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and I think what happened is Zillow, became the behemoth that nobody wanted to talk about for a long time. And Zillow kind of forgot like how they got there and kind of started, treating agents like they didn't need them anymore. But then it was like agents realized, wow, we've allowed Zillow to become this behemoth. So agents started pushing back. And I think really very quickly Zillow said, oh crap, we messed up. So now how do we get the agents back on our side? And now they're taking it a step further where it's like, trying to get these brand deals with brokerages. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how long this really lasts. I think this and the private listing network, I think all of these things, the second that we have a viable nationwide MLS, all of these other things are just going to go away.
Agreed. So here's the bottom line. We talked about like the three deals, Compass, Remax, and the EXP Next Home, but they all kind of followed one playbook. Buy the brand, keep it distinct, and layer AI and ancillary services on top, and then print money off the transaction pipeline. So what we're seeing is the trend of mega brands, and they're betting on consolidation wins, and then also just buying people in general. The portals are betting transparency wins. Somebody's going to be wrong, and a lot of agents are going to get caught in the middle while they figure it out. So if you want the real story on what's happening in the industry and not just the pretty press release version, go ahead and follow our show. Make sure you're turning notifications on. We do this every weekday, unfiltered, and we'll see you next time.